Hey guys, welcome back to story time. Today's theme is dragons and fairy tales, and we're going to go ahead and read a wonderful classic known as Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood, retold and illustrated by David MacPhail. Once there was a girl called Little Red Riding Hood because whenever she went out, she wore a pretty red cape. One day her mother baked some cookies and asked Little Red Riding Hood to take them to grandmother, who was ill and could not leave her bed. Stay on the path and don't dawdle, instructed Little Red Riding Hood's mother, and the girl started off. Little Red Riding Hood was about halfway to grandmother's house when she met a wolf. But as she didn't know what a bad sort of animal he was, she did not feel afraid. "Where are you off to so early this fine day?" inquired the wolf. "I'm taking some cookies to my grandmother," answered Little Red Riding Hood. "And where does your grandmother live?" the wolf persisted. "Her house stands beneath the 3 oak trees," said Little Red Riding Hood. As she was innocently explaining all this, the wolf was thinking, "If I can get there before her, I'll eat the grandmother for my main course and this tender young morsel for my desserts." "Your grandmother would surely love a bouquet of flowers," the wolf said to Little Red Riding Hood. And that set Little Red Riding Hood to thinking about it. So Little Red Riding Hood ventured farther and farther off the path to pick flowers, while the wolf went hastily to grandmother's house and knocked on the door. "Who's there?" called the grandmother in a very weak voice. "It's your dear granddaughter," lied the wolf. "Please open the door." "Come in," said the grandmother. "The door is not locked." As soon as the door opened, the grandmother realized her mistake. For instead of her darling Little Red Riding Hood, a wicked wolf stepped into the room, and though the grandmother's body was weak, she ran to the wardrobe and locked the door. The wolf would have torn the door right off its hinges, but through the window he saw Little Red Riding Hood walking down the path. So the wolf put on grandmother's cap and glasses, which had fallen to the floor, climbed into the bed, and pulled the covers up to his chin. When she got to her grandmother's house, Little Red Riding Hood was surprised to see an open door. Nevertheless, she stepped inside. "Good morning, grandmother," she called, but there was no answer. Little Red Riding Hood stepped closer to the bed. As the curtain had been drawn around the bed, Little Red Riding Hood could not see clearly in the dim light. "Oh, grandmother," she exclaimed, "what big ears you have!" "All the better to hear you with," said the wolf. "Oh, grandmother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what big eyes you have!" "All the better to see you with," said the wolf. "Oh, grandmother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what big teeth you have!" "All the better to eat you with," said the wolf, and he threw back the covers. But Little Red Riding Hood was too quick for the wolf, and before he could catch her, she crawled under the bed. The angry wolf went after her, but as he was much bigger than Little Red Riding Hood, he got stuck. Little Red Riding Hood came out from under the bed and jumped on top of it. She jumped up and down and shouted at the top of her voice, "Help! Help! There's a big bad wolf in here, and I fear he has eaten my grandmother." Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother, on hearing this, came out of the wardrobe. Meanwhile, everyone who happened to be in the forest that day, including a woodcutter with a mighty sharp axe, heard Little Red Riding Hood's cries and ran to help. They had nearly reached the cottage when the wolf finally managed to squeeze out from under the bed and stagger through the door. The last time Little Red Riding Hood saw the wolf, he was running down the path, followed closely by a hostile crowd. And Little Red Riding Hood never saw or heard from him again. Alright, you guys, that was today's story time. I know it was short, but I hope it was sweet and that you guys enjoyed the story, even though you may have heard it before. It's an awesome classic, and it definitely reminds us to be wary of strangers and careful of our surroundings. Okay, you guys, thank you for joining us today. See you next time.